size we want. Just a little lead-headed jig. I just made it this size. Take different size hooks and put it in here. This is just an example of what we can do. I know this head I can make a lot bigger, lead-wise. If we want, we can come in here, you know, and maybe I will. Maybe I'll even make, you know, we'll grind that even bigger. We'll come up into around there, grinding it. So we want a nice hunk of lead in there. Let me even do that. I'll grind that out into here. Important thing here for right now, for what I'm showing you, isn't the shape of that lead-headed jig down there, where its location. What I want to show you is how easy it is to make some of these molds and make this up. Like I say, really all this is 2 holes with a connector going through, and what it is these holes are just really to hold the hook in place. This bigger hole here is really just for the head of the eye to set down inside. The shape of the lead, hey, I mean, you could make anything you want. You can go real big on this thing. Again, this was just, you know, if I would angle this in more, I could really put a big piece of lead in there. This is just to show you how this all works. Now, to show you, I told you I was going to show you about what we can do with these molds. Now, got a little, this is called tie wire. I'm going to cut it. Cut it in lengths. Cut as much as I want. Any thin bendable wire. I'm going to go ahead. I bend it down a little corner, a little hole. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to bend it up. And then where it's going to go is right in there. Take the other piece of wire. I'll keep this hole a little smaller. I'm going to bend up that piece of wire, set it in there. Wire here. Piece of wire. Bend it up. There's a little hunk of wire. I use this tie wire with sort of a galvanized wire, but you can use any wire. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set them 3 pieces of wire down in there. Get that real close. See them 3 pieces of wire laying in there? Next, what we're going to do, take the other side of the mold, put it together, put a clamp on, put it together, put a clamp on it. I'm going to pour the lead in there. After we pour the lead in there, now when we pour the lead in, you want a sinker that long, that size, pour it all the way up. You only want a half pour. This is where you determine how long, how big you want your sinker. You want a fat, short sinker, you just pour a little bit. Like I say, those wires will be cast right in there then. So then you're going to have a drop sinker. You can pour it anything you want. You know, you pour it all the way up, you got a nice big sinker, you pour it halfway. Do the same thing with these others. You can any size. If you pour it too long, you can always just cut it off and make it any size you want. But, alright, so that's the first. First is drop sinkers you can make with this mold. Next, put this mold together. Next operation. And I get some, these are actually stainless steel brazing rods, welding rods, just bare rods. You can get them around, or any 1/8 rod. I'm going to drop a 1/8 rod down in that hole. 1/8 rod down in that hole. 1/8 rod down in that hole. This one's going to be a little tight pouring because, man, you only got, you don't got much around it. So we'll see how that one works out. That might not work out too well with the rod because it's too small a diameter. But these other two will work out real well. With the rod in there, we'll pour the lead in there, and we'll show you in a pour. Same thing with this one. Pour the lead in there. Once it's set up, we'll pull the mold apart. And what we end up with is a hole going all the way through the lead. A slip sinker. Alright. The other thing you can do with the sinker is, if you got my DVD, there's a hunk of lead that I had done. It's a 1/2 inch diameter. There's a hunk of lead that I had done with the hole going through. I use 1/8 rod in the DVD that I make about making these plastic headed jigs. And the one thing I do is, if I want a leaded head, it slips right on there. I can make all different sizes and diameters. Alright, so far I showed you slip sinker, a wire-headed, the bottom sinker you can make out of this. These we find we work real good with this when we figured on a Niagara off a 3-way swivel, and we use sinkers this size, and they bounce along the bottom nice off of a 3-way swivel. This one, now what we're going to do with this one, let me get another hunk of wire. A hunk. This is actually 1/16 inch welding, stainless steel welding rod. You can go buy it, or you can use any kind of steel. What I'll do is, I'll put a little kink in it. Maybe not so much of a kink. I'll set it in. It's in, and we're going to pour it. Then what we're going to do is, once it's poured, and again we're going to form, take it out, and like I say, right in here we're going to have the lead sinker. I'll go ahead and I'll just take this, I'll do it rough for now. With the sinker in there, you can go ahead, tie your line on here, come along to your line, put a leader off of this one, coming out, you have that lead, and it'll just bounce along the bottom there. A little snagness. And we'll set up one of those. We'll pour one of those too. Alright, that's it on that. The only other thing I'm going to try, see if fit is how to make big sinkers. Out of aluminum, not out of the other. I still But again, alright, here we go. Here's the end of this. Got this. Alright, I got one more mold to show you how to make. What this is this is 2-inch outside diameter aluminum conduit. Junkyard you can get this stuff at. Around a construction site you don't need much. You only need around 8-inch piece. Now what it is, part of this I did already, but what you're going to do is you're going to clamp it in a vise so it doesn't move. You're going to go ahead and put a straight line right down the center of this. Not all the way through, but right down the line, center it. You're going to cut an angle Sand it in. You're going to cut this angle here and an angle there. Then after you do that, well, you know which part goes to which. This line, you can try keeping it straight, but it doesn't have to be dead straight. And I'll show you why. Because these pieces, once we cut it through here, I'm going to cut it around, oh, I don't know. I'll cut it around 5 inches long. Once you cut this off, you're going to have 2 pieces. Let me go cut them off, and I'll show you what we have and what the next part of this is going to be. Alright, the way this is going to work, I have these 2 pieces. Cut apart, cut right through the center. And if you cut them like that at both sides, it don't make any difference if it's real straight, because when you put them together, they'll match. Match perfectly. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one side of these, and I got 4 pieces of metal, aluminum, cut. I'm going to take it and I'll put it along that side, put it along that side, and I have to weld it here and tack it here. Now, I know you don't have, this is aluminum, and you don't have a welder. There is some stuff supposedly to sell. On this particular thing, you almost got to know somebody. I have a little wire welder that it's going to look like, it looks like yuck. But I could tack it on enough to hold this plate here. Then what we're going to do after that, we're going to put the 2 pieces together, and we're going to weld on another 2 pieces of metal. I'm going to do the welding, and then I'll show you how the finished thing should look. Now what it is if I really want something real done nice, I take it to my brother. He's got a TIG welder that's real nice. The other thing I'm going to do is I got a little piece of 1/8 aluminum. I'm going to tack it right on the end of that. Right on the end of that, I'm going to tack it on. Let me go tack it on. I'll show you what it looks like. On this particular thing, you really need somebody welder to do this. You need somebody with a bandsaw, actually. I only got a little 9-inch bandsaw. That'll handle this. You can use smaller than 2-inch diameter pipe. The next size down, I think, is around 1 3/4. 1 3/4 inch diameter pipe. Let me try doing. Put a clamp. Pull them 2 halves together, make sure they're lined up. I'm going to clamp, I'm going to show you. Clamp this piece on this side. The other side. Clamp that piece of metal. Now, well, and actually, I got this end piece. It's going to go right on there to finish off the end. First, I'm going to weld here, weld through here, and then I'm going to weld this cap on. Then, the last thing we're going to do is, remember how we drilled holes in here for our pins? We're going to put holes in there for our pins. Show you what I got. I got the 2 halves welded. While they were clamped together, I drilled holes. These are going to be our locator holes. Next thing I'm going to do is, just like I did in the other, make up pins. And I tap the pins in there. They're a little tighter than I want them. File a little off the pins. Alright, this is an example of one of the sinkers I made before. Now what we want to do is we want to be able, now these are, like I say, coated, but what I want to be able to do is put a piece of rod in there. I'm going to use 16th rod, 16th welding rod. And what I want to do, line 5/16 here roughly, 5/16 there. Drill the hole down through there for the 16th rod. That is 3/32 rod. All right. And I'm going to pour it. What that's going to do is, that's going to cast that piece of stainless steel, you can see down in the hole, into the lead sinker. Alright, let me make a couple of these up, because actually this is ready to pour. Like I say, did a lousy job welding. My brother's the welder, but I got a $110 welder. It's 110 volt. You ever get a welder? Go with 220. Plus 2, you find aluminum is very bad to weld. I had it with gas and everything else, and I got it together, but it doesn't look the best. But the important part is what the inside looks like. Alright, that's about it. Actually, the next step is really pouring. You know, we made the others. Got them here. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit more grinding right now on here, and grinding in here to smooth this up before I pour it. Then, like I say, we're going to make a pour. I'm going to take this apart and see how the two pieces line up and how much more I got to take to one side. And I'll show you how that works and how these will line up, how you get those to line up. But, alright, that's it until the pour. Now, probably, alright, folks, what it is I poured, let me see, this is that one where we're going to have the hip crook in, and this is the other one. I poured it, and what we want to do is, I'm going to first look on the bottom side of both these molds, and on this one, you can see this little slight flat here? That means that the top mold extends over a little bit further than the bottom mold. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come along here and scribe along this line. I don't know how well you can see, but right through here I got maybe a little 32nd of an inch to take off, where it's overlapping. On the other half of this side overlaps a good little bit, and I'll have to scribe that, but just, and up on here it is. But what we want to do is get anything, scribe anything that's on the bottom, that's overlapped a little bit, because that means the bottom one is in too small. So what it is, I got it scribed. I scribed along to that line. And now I'm going to go ahead and grind some off with the burr to that line. And I mean, that was very little. But again now, what we want to do is, when we end up putting these two halves together, we want the sides to match. On this one, we have a hair over along this side that this is a little smaller than the top. So I'm going to put this back in here. I'm going to scribe it a little bit. That wasn't much. Alright. Now if we want to look too, I got a little funny indentation there, which is right at a little stump in there. Alright, that did the one side. Now what I'm going to do is come over here, take the other side of the mold, we flip this over, and as you see along this outer edge right here, this mold is too small. So we're going to come in here. I'm going to scribe it along where it's too small. I don't know if you can see that little extra line. It's not really much. Alright, let's see that one in there. This one has a little funny tip on the end where it looks like the drill bit must have gone in the bottom, and that's still in there. So I'm going to go down and hit that. And actually this isn't really going to put a lot of weight to that hook. But again, when you make this, you can make this as big as you want. We could have gone deeper, bigger, anything. It's just the idea I'm showing you how you do the head. Now, this other one, say on the bottom, you can see where this one, up over here, has a whole section that it's flat, through here, through here. Just a good little bit more. I'm going to put this one in. Pop it out, and I'll even lay there so I can see it, where it is, how much it is. This has a little bit more down at this end. I'll come in here, scribe that, scribe that. Alright, you can see we had this flat on here where the bottom side was smaller than the top. And when we put it, we showed it, we had it here. We ground down along that side. And on this one, same thing. We ground a little out because it had a little bumpy here. We ground that out. What it is every time you pour one of these things, you can set the piece of lead back in and sit. You might have to dress up, grind a little bit more off both sides. But that's how you align both of these so they'll line up perfect here. The shape of this, I probably could have taken more time and come in rather than just to this point here, come over here more. But again, all this is to show you how this is. Alright, tomorrow we're going to pour these. This is my third DVD I'm making on how to make items. First was on plastic lures. Second was on tuna bag. This is going to be on making sinkers. This first sinker we're going to make, I'm a little leery about showing you this because if you don't do this right, this can get a little dangerous when you pour the sinker. Not making it, but when you go to pour the sinker, you really have to be careful how you do that. Now, the way it started out was, this looks kind of rough, and the reason is it's actually lead that come out smooth, and you'll see a finished one. But what it is, I had dipped it in epoxy to cover the lead, sort of handling it, So this is just a heavy epoxy coating on it that I dipped in there. But what it is brown. A 4-pound trolling weight. I wanted a shape, contour round, so it cut through the water good. Wanted something around 4 or 5 pounds in weight. What it is all the way through, I have a
a beaded chain. You can see the beaded chain with a little connector on the end. This is what I put it in the line. I wanted a beaded chain. It's 3/16 beaded chain. It's rated out at around 100 pounds, I think 150 pounds, the beaded chain. 3/16 diameter ball. But I wanted it so the lines wouldn't get tangled up, and hey, it would let that thing, wouldn't let the lines get wrapped around and all that. That beaded chain, but that beaded chain runs all the way through that sinker. Here's how I made this trolling sinker. I mean, you could make this sinker a lot bigger, longer, whatever. This is how I made this one. This is one way to make it. I mean, the way I'm going to show you is how I do things. If you wanted to, you could just take a piece of wood and shape it by sanding it to this. All you have to really do is get a shape that you want to do. I'm going to show you a way you would make up a little bit more of a professional mold. I'll also to show you. Here's the pattern for this. So actually I turned it on a lathe at once. It's actually 2 pieces of wood that have a dowel hooking it together. I can line it up, have a finished part, and I'll show you how this is going to work. This is a little rough now, but I already made this already, and I'm just doing this again. So, all right, let me show you how I did this. What it is I had pinned this together with a couple of dowels, 2 pieces of wood, put it on a lathe, turned it on a lathe, then went ahead, split it, so I had the 2 turned pieces, the shapes. I could have made it any size. And now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take it, I'm going to attach the side without the dowel down on a wooden board. We're going to go ahead and do some other stuff to allow for this. We're going to put a frame around it, another little piece of wood I'll show you for pouring the material in there. Then we're going to go ahead and what I do to line up the 2 halves. Once it's poured, we're going to take it apart, get rid of this board. It's going to be laying inside like that. We're going to put the other half of the board on, put another half of this on top, and pour that. Let me show you as I go along, as I put it together, and we're going to go. I'll spend, like I say, I'm going to do 2. I'm going to do one. Take the 1 piece that I have turned, a couple of holes in it where the dowels are going to go. I'll show you how that lined up, but I'm going to go ahead roughly, set it down on my board that I have roughly laid out with a center line. Flip it over, run a little screw into that, run a screw into that. That's simple enough. I'm going to take these 2 rough frames that I put together. Thickness isn't important, but you want it a good little bit thicker than the material, because I show you when you pour this, you want a lot of material around this thing so it doesn't break, so it's got some strength to it. But you can see that this is maybe 3/4 of an inch, and this is around at least 2 inches, if not 2.5 inches. It's a framework. As you can see, let's come in close. This wooden frame is big enough so I have some area around that, a good spacing of area around that. Next thing I'm going to do is turn this over and put 2 screws. There, into there. Now, next thing I have to do is I have to have, as you can see in the chain, I want to be able, when I put this mold, to put that chain through this. So what I've done there is taken a 3/16 diameter rod, sanded it halfway down, and I mean, this is all rough kind of stuff. Doesn't have to be that exact. Down here, cut that.